What do they say? It's cold outside. You can think of polar vortex. Now we've got something called the Siberian Express, and they're blasting Arctic air down into the United States with brutally freezing temperatures for millions of people. It could be some of the coldest weather in parts of the East Coast since the 19th century. Well, the frigid weather, along with snow and ice, is making for dangerous, if not deadly, travel conditions. Heather Sells has the story.
The nation is bracing for another deep freeze today and tomorrow. This latest dose of polar vortex is bringing a surge of Siberian air that will hit 24 states and unleash record-breaking cold.
I just want it gone. I just want it gone.
Sub-zero lows will blast from the Midwest into the western mid-Atlantic states today. And tomorrow, forecasters are looking at lows of -20 in states like Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and yes, right here in Virginia. The cold plus snow plus ice has created dangerous driving conditions in many states. In Tennessee, a state of emergency. Winter weather encrusted this plain in Nashville and turned streets into virtual skating rinks. Schools are closed in many places for the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Today is bitter cold.
Farmers in southern states are covering up their crops to protect them. In Philadelphia, the Coast Guard is using special icebreakers to keep the Delaware River flowing and commercial traffic moving. In hard-hit Boston, heavy snow has caused more than 80 roofs to collapse. At this skating rink, it slid off the roof and buried 5 people.
And you could tell it was hurt, with like his neck. And then the lady looked very hurt too.
In Virginia Beach, another rescue. A neighbor came to the aid of 2 brothers who fell through the ice into this pond. Both are okay. Going forward, expect wind chill advisories in 24 states, including Florida, and a few scenic sights along the way, like the frozen spectacle of Niagara Falls.
Beautiful. It's awesome.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Everybody's asking for the Farmer's Almanac. They are right. So keep in mind, don't plant your spring peas yet. Well, it may be freezing cold in our nation's capital, but President Obama is catching heat for his refusal during a terrorism summit to talk about Islamic terrorism. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, the president is again denying Islam is responsible for terrorism. Speaking at the White House conference on countering violent extremism, he said the global war on terrorism is really about battling extremism, not Islam, and that terrorists are people who have perverted Islam.
They no more represent Islam than any madman who kills innocents in the name of God represents Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Hinduism. No religion is responsible for terrorism. People are responsible for violence and terrorism.
The president rejected the idea that Islam is inherently violent or that there is some sort of clash of civilizations. He says he doesn't want to mention Islam when talking about terrorism because it would give Islamic radicals a tool to recruit new fighters. But critics are mocking the president and his administration for not using phrases like Islamic terrorism. Today's New York Post shows a picture of the president blindfolded with the caption, "Islamic terror, I just don't see it." And Pat, many would say that depiction is accurate.
Well, it certainly is. You know, we have a book. I met with some Islamic scholars. They speak Arabic. They're experts on the Quran. They're experts on Islam. They know precisely what's going on. They put together, along with some help, a book called Islam, Religion of Peace or War. And they go back into the origins of Islam. They look at the Quran, the writings of Muhammad, what he said, what he told his followers to do, what he actually did. And it's all there. And what the president doing, we talk about climate deniers. Well, he's a historical denier. The history of jihad, the history of the Islamic sweep across North Africa is well known to any decent historian. And these radicals are not, quote, distorting Islam. They are living the pages of the Quran and the Hadith. they're doing precisely what the founder of their religion told them to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, this book you need right now. You need Islam, Religion of Peace or War. We've had about 350,000 copies sent out, and we'd be glad to give you a copy free, but it's a very, very important book to have, and we'll give it to you for absolutely no cost. But it's a beautiful thing, beautifully illustrated with, you know, all kinds of quotes from the Quran, the Hadith, and historical background. I think you need it. Ephraim.
Pat, the White House promised an appeal after a federal judge in Texas temporarily blocked the president's executive action on illegal immigrants. But an appeal's victory is not assured. Dale Hurd explains.
U.S. District Judge Andrew Hannon's decision earlier this week blocked President Obama's executive orders to keep as many as 5 million illegal aliens from being deported.
With respect to the ruling, I disagree with it. I think the law is on our side.
Supporters of amnesty for illegals were outraged by the judge's ruling, but viewed the court order as a temporary setback.
You never want to lose a round in court, but we also know that this is a very early round. This is an injunction. The judge did not rule on the merits of the case.
This judge wouldn't listen to us, but we're going to go to another judge, and he won't listen to us. We'll go to another judge until the other judge until they listen to us.
But Hannon's ruling may be hard to challenge, and the White House faces a difficult and possibly lengthy legal battle because Hannon's ruling was legally sound, that President Obama violated federal law.
The president overstepped the constitutional boundaries, and that's what we've been saying, my Republican colleagues up in Congress, for months now. It was nice to have a federal judge weigh in and say, yeah, you were right.
But Hannon didn't rule on constitutionality, but on procedure, which the White House did not follow. The Justice Department's appeal could take months. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
A Washington state florist who refused to provide flowers for a gay wedding has been found guilty of breaking the law. Benton County Superior Court Judge Alex Ekstrom ruled Wednesday that Baronelle Stutzman, the owner of Arlene's Flowers, violated the state's consumer protection and anti-discrimination law. Stutzman argues her actions were protected by her right to religious freedom. But the judge ruled while religious beliefs are protected by the First Amendment, actions based on those beliefs aren't necessarily. He also ruled Stutzman must provide full wedding support for same-sex ceremonies. A recent Associated Press poll found 57% of Americans said wedding-related businesses like florists should be allowed to refuse service if they have an objection rooted in their religion. Pat, how far do you think this will go?
Well, I think there's got to be some intelligent judge in the state of Washington who would rule against this. This is just outrageous. To say that some procedural anomaly in the statute overrules the fundamental religious freedoms of the people is just crazy. And I hope that the lawyers for this florist will appeal this thing to get into the federal courts but this is outrageous. To tell a florist that she's got to provide flowers for a particular kind of wedding? What if somebody wanted to marry his dog? She's got to have flowers for that? What if there's a polygamous situation where a guy has 5 wives and he wants to have 5 ceremonies and she's going to be forced by the law to provide them flowers? I mean, this is crazy. And it's just the kind of way that these courts have gone in interpreting this stuff. I remember talking to Cardinal O'Connor, who was a marvelous man of God, and we were talking about George Washington University, and they had a campus gay group, and a federal court, I believe, or just a D.C. city court, had ruled that they had to provide accommodations for this gay group, that they had to give them telephones and office space and all the rest of it. And that was contrary to Catholic teaching. And I asked the cardinal, I said, what would you do if you were in charge of it? He said, I'd close the school down. Just like that, I'd close it down. Well, some of these bakers and florists may be forced out of business if the courts make them do things contrary to their beliefs. Well, it's a cold day. Even here in sunny Virginia Beach, we are breaking records. The coldest day today in 20 years. and it's going to be colder tonight. But there's hope. And Ephraim has good news about how you can stay healthy.
Indeed, Pat, there may be more fruit, vegetables, and healthy options available than ever before. But the world is still mostly hungry for junk food. That is according to a study of self-reported surveys of eating habits in nearly 190 countries from 1990 to 2010, published online in the journal Lancet Medical Health. It found people are eating more healthy foods, including whole grains and fish, but there has been an even bigger jump in the amount of junk food people are eating. People in Western countries are among the biggest eaters of junk food, but China and India are catching up. And Pat, as we've reported, these foods are addictive.
Mickey D's has destroyed the world. There should be some kind of a TV special on Mickey D's does it to India, something like that. Because the Indians, the Chinese, I tell you, I was in China. I had the best Kentucky Fried Chicken I've ever had in my life in Beijing.
Right at the Great Wall.
Well, wherever.
Oh, goodness.
Anyhow, they're catching up fast and we're destroying it. What is it that's making want to eat more is high fructose corn syrup. It sets up craving. And if you put that stuff in food, it will cause people to want more thereof. And so the food purveyors know that, and they're loading it up with the kind of sugar that is destroying our health.
Atlanta's former fire chief is suing the mayor and the city over his dismissal. Kelvin Cochran's federal lawsuit alleges Mayor Kasim Reed fired him because of his religious beliefs and violated his constitutional rights. Cochran is a Christian. He was fired in January after calling homosexuality vulgar and the opposite of purity in his book titled "Who Told You That You Were Naked?" The mayor has said the chief was terminated over his judgment and management skills, and his personal religious beliefs are not the issue. The Supreme Court has again rejected an appeal from a small church in the Bronx that tried to overturn New York City's ban on after-hours religious worship services in public schools. The Bronx Household of Faith held Sunday services at PS 15 for 12 years until last summer, when the church completed its own building near the school. But the church said it still needs extra space for events that include religious services. The Supreme Court has rejected the church's appeal twice in a lawsuit that's lasted 18 years. Remember, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.